The answer to the question, how come no one requested the Epstein files be released during the Barack Obama or Joe Biden administration? The answer is someone did. Some of your favorite gossip sites, not the one you would think of, made a Freedom of Information Act request to the FBI during Donald Trump's first term. And in 2017, the National Enquirer asked for the release of the Epstein files. They didn't get a response. A sister site, Radar Online, the following month filed a lawsuit at the Southern District of New York requesting for release of the files. They attached to their pleading a 2006 investigative report by New York Times, which revealed that Jeffrey Epstein had gotten a cushy sweetheart deal by then Department of Justice Assistant United States Attorney Alice Acosta, who was appointed by George W. Bush and was allowed to plead down to one simple count of solicitation of a minor, served 6 months in jail, and was released to the wild to continue to victimize for another decade. At that time, Alice Acosta was the Department of Labor Secretary under Donald Trump. During Barack Obama's term, Alice Acosta sealed the case. It was not unsealed until the following year in 2009 when it lay dormant until a very smart woman, Julie K. Brown of the Miami Herald, said something's amiss, and she and her work triggered the National Enquirer to make that first demand for the Epstein files. It always takes a very smart woman. So Radar Online won the case. Between 2017 and 2019, the FBI under Donald Trump started releasing the Epstein files, 500 pages per month, heavily redacted, slow walking it, until 2019 when they started prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein until he eventually, in August 2019, they asked for a pause of the release because at that time, a lot of the victims were in court with Jeffrey Epstein's estate seeking damages for their harm. And also in 2021, under Joe Biden's term, they started to prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell, and she was convicted in 2022, and also because of the interest of the victims, the limitations of grand jury testimony, the pause continued until 2023 under Joe Biden, where Maureen Comey, the daughter of Jim Comey, made the request that the judge in the case via summary judgment, and it was granted. Of course, you can imagine Radar Online promptly appealed to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, where it laid there and wallowed for a long time until, fast forward, this April, when Donald Trump is president again, his Department of Justice goes to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals and asks them to dismiss the case and dismiss the appeal. They argued that in November, Congress had passed the Epstein Transparency Act requiring the release of the files, so the Radar Online's lawsuit was no longer relevant and was de facto moot. At a hearing at the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, Dan Novak, a First Amendment lawyer who also happens to be an associate general counsel at Penguin House Book Publishers and who brought the case on behalf of Radar Online on a pro bono or free basis, argued that the government had been relying on one exemption to the copyright to the Freedom of Information Act, Law 7A, which allows the government to withhold documents if they are pursuant or part of an ongoing investigation. And he said they used that excuse in 2017 when at the time Jeffrey Epstein was not subject to an investigation and he was a free man. The government said if the judge or the courts decided not to block or dismiss the case as moot, they should at minimum send it back down to the Southern District of New York for them to decide. Right before they made the decision, the government, Department of Justice, dumped 2.7 million files. And Dan was weary that perhaps his file in his case would be dismissed. However, there's 3.5 million files that's still outstanding. So there we go. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals decided not to dismiss the case, instead sent it back down to the Southern District of New York to decide whether it was moot. And so there's going to be a fresh briefing schedule a fresh opportunity for Radar Online to argue the Department of Justice not release all of the Epstein files, even despite the fact that there is a congressional act requiring them to do so. So your instincts are absolutely correct. There has been a failure across multiple administrations to reveal victims by assailants that are known and are alive today, walking amongst us. However, there's a saying that says, a mind once expanded can never go back to the shape it was before. So now that we, the public, have been digging in the files, I personally follow several online internet sleuths who have been going through the files meticulously that are known and are alive today, walking amongst us. However, there's a saying that says, mind expanded can never go back to the shape it was before. So now that we, the public, have been digging in the files, I personally follow several online sleuths who have been going through the files meticulously, revealing what they have found, and the images and the video and the accounts and the accusations and the evidence is damning. And it's maddening, the fact that we've known about this for so long, and we've had several administrations not do more to make the assailants and the perpetrators accountable for their acts. And even if our current Department of Justice is slow walking it under acting Attorney General Todd Lyons, who was Donald Trump's personal lawyer before Donald Trump won the second term, we can be at least rest assured that the independent media, that's not compromised, are doing the digging and doing the work. And there is actually finally accountability to a certain extent. We know that Prince Andrew has been stripped of his title, and he was arrested on financial crimes, not the crimes against children. We know that there are several professors and business people and moneyed, empowered royalty across various different kingdoms and palaces across the world have been forced to at minimum step down. So hopefully at some point some investigations will be had, some trials will be had, and we will actually start seeing some men be prosecuted, indicted, and jailed, and more accountability for the essay crimes, not just the financial crimes. Because it looks like right now it's just like a lot of people, other than the woman, Cadell Maxwell, who's in prison, who the current acting Attorney General went to visit, and after he visited her last summer, gave her a situation where she was in a minimum security prison, despite the fact that she victimized children and does not deserve any sort of preferable treatment, and that when she left, she decided to be quiet and not say anything. Notwithstanding the fact that there are a lot of people who don't believe that the images they've seen that was released of that visit is actual Ghislaine Maxwell. She did in December on her own file an appeal of her conviction, claiming that there are more co-conspirators that have not been named, and that there's some folks who got more deals. So sunshine is the best disinfectant. And I do believe we are in the era that a lot of people can be held accountable. In the coming weeks, and coming months, coming years, we're going to be hearing a lot about this. And again, we owe it to a very smart woman and people asking questions. So that's your answer. It was a failure across multiple administration. We can own up to that. But I think once we get past that and own up to it, I think at this point now, we know what we know. The blame game is like really the main point. The point is finding out all we need to know about the cabal, about the Epstein class, who they are, where they live in, what they're doing now, who they victimize. As the world turns, so this means it may be the courts, yet again, to save us. I'm JJ Legal. This is what I do here. I look at the lawsuits related to the Trump administration, and I bring you some hope and take you beyond the headlines. So I hope this was instructional and helpful for you and gives you some responses to people who ask that question. Each one teach one is my. Share this video so more people know.